make it there and can make it back.
Salutations and shit, folks. Welcome back to another episode of your favorite travel podcast, Travel and Shit, where I, your host, D. Carrie, have an experiential conversation about the nuanced ways that travel intersects with regular life. I am hoping that you are on the YouTubes to see the beautiful face that is joining me today. I have a guest, guys. My beautiful guest, Christine. Thank you so much for joining me. Please introduce yourself to the audience.
Hey everyone, I'm Christine Job. I am a business strategist and I am also a podcaster. I'm originally from Atlanta. I currently live in Spain and I'm just so excited to be here to chat with you. We were talking, like we've known of each other for a while, so I'm excited to get in and really chat.
And I thank you so much. And yes, we are in so many of the same internet circles. Shout out to Wanda. Shout out to Danielle. Shout out to Alexandra. Incredible women podcasters who are making space for other women podcasters, especially those of us that are in the different intersections and intermixes and interwebs of identity and presentation to the world. So gang, y'all. Gang. I'm happy to be here in community with you. So I know, before I fuck it up, Camino de Santiago. Okay, so, wow. First of all, start there. I enjoy being outside. I enjoy walking a bit, but please explain to everyone what this is so that they kind of get the gist of what the wow is. It's not exactly, a walk in the park, if you will. Please explain what this undertaking actually is.
Yeah, so the Camino de Santiago is a pilgrimage. It's a medieval pilgrimage. It's 800 kilometers, roughly 500 miles across Spain. There's several different paths you can take too. So there's like different routes. There's like a shorter path like via Portugal. There's one in Andalusia. There's even one I think through Madrid. There's like the most famous one is a Camino Frances because it starts on the French side of the Pyrenees and it ends in Santiago de Compostela, which is in Galicia. So that's the northwest part of Spain. So you go over the Pyrenees and you walk across Spain. And then you can always go further to the Atlantic coast. That's what I did, to Finisterre. So it's a pilgrimage. People have been doing it to absolve themselves of things, to get clarity. And I did it on a whim. And I know you're gonna be like, how do you just like fall into walking 500 miles?
Yeah.
Divine nudge, basically. Because honestly, like the quick and dirty version is this. I was supposed to move to Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia in the fall of 2014. And I had a cute apartment in Atlanta in Inman Park. I was living that life. And I was like, oh, I'm going to take this job. So I got rid of my apartment. I moved back in with my mom out into the suburbs to wait it out to get like my visa and things. And then July 2014, they reneged. They were like, actually, no. And I was just like, man, come on. I was a year out of law school. I didn't take the bar because I was like, I'm doing something different. I'm finding my own way. So I was like, oh yeah, I'm going to join a startup in Malaysia. Deuces. And then it was like, no, you're not. And so I was out there in the suburbs like, man, what am I doing with my life? Like, what's the next step? And so I went hiking, I went walking up a mountain. Like I drove my car, I parked and I went walking up a mountain and I was going to walk back down to the mountain and get in my car. I went on a hike like that. And I was just, trying to clear my head. I was just like, God, universe, what do you want from me? This shit sucks. Like, hate it here,
Mm-hmm.
And it came to me, walk the Camino de Santiago. Now, it was strange because I'd only heard about this pilgrimage 6 months prior, like at a New Year's, I think it was like a dinner I had with some friends. We were talking about what we wanted for that year, talking about bucket lists. One of my friends was like, yeah, I want to do the Camino Santiago. And I was like, girl, what's that? She's like, yeah, basically you take a backpack, you walk across Spain. And I was like, okay, girl, like that sounds good for you. Like, who wants to do that? It sucks. Like before this experience, like I was as outdoorsy as someone who, I don't know, goes to brunch like in a park. Like I was like, that's me being outdoorsy. So when it came to me, I immediately like tried to push it out of my mind, but it really haunted me in a way that nothing has really haunted me since. It was very like, you need to take this step. You need to take this step. And it was really intense for like 2 days. It was like, no, this is the thing you need to do. And then I actually looked it up because I was like, I don't even know what it was. I look it up on the internet and I see like, oh, it's a walk across Spain. I immediately think of like all the things, like all the stereotypical things, like, oh, I can't do it. I'm a woman by myself. Oh my goodness. And of course, I scroll down the forum and it's like some 86-year-old grandma who's like, this is my 18th Camino. And I was like, I
Oh,
cannot let this grandma punk me like that. Like, I can't go out like that. That's not who I am
right.
as a person.
Yeah.
So I was just like, universe, if you really want me to do it, you're going to make it happen, you know? And then the universe really was like, bet. And I was like, wait, what?
Sis.
Everything came into focus. Like everything came to
Wow.
me. Like it was weird. Like for example, I told my friend, I was like, oh, I think I want to do this Camino. She's like, oh, we'll talk to this guy. He's done it a lot of times. I was like, okay, I'll have a conversation. Maybe that'll appease the universe. Get off my back. And he told me to meet him at this place. He gave me the address and stuff like that. I pull up, it's a hospital. I'm like, what? I text him. I'm like, I'm here. He's like, oh yeah, come into this like lobby. He's in the lobby of this hospital waiting for his ex-wife because she's having some kind of procedure. And I was like, is this a bad time? He's like, no, it's
Yeah.
perfect. I'm here for a couple of hours. He takes the cross off of his neck. He puts it around me, gives me like 80, 90 euro in my hand, and then gives me like a packing list. It's like, buen camino. And for me, like that was the universe like, that's your sign.
Basically.
Bye. And it was wild, right? So this all happens in like early mid July, and then by August 10th, I'm on the Camino, and it was
Oh, wow.
crazy. I cried every day, and I'm not a crier. I cried every day before I got on that plane. And I've been solo traveling and stuff like that before. I
Mhm.
cried every day. I cried in the shower, like it's like an R&B song. I was
Yeah.
like, ugh. I was crying everywhere. And my mom was like, you don't have to go. And I was like, I really think I have to though. Like, I really feel like I got to do this. And so I did. I got all my stuff. I did. And the crazy thing is like I still didn't know a lot about it. Like I looked at the website and I was like, okay, I got a book. I didn't even look at the book. My mom was like, there's a movie about it. I was like, no, no worries. I don't need that. Because it was like I needed to go do it.
Yeah.
So I landed in France. I tried to learn French on the plane ride to France. That didn't work. Just to let y'all know. Like unless you are like an amazing linguist or whatever, us regular folk, you can't learn French on a plane. I landed in Bordeaux. Girl, I was like, I tried out my French, my plain French. They were like, what? I was like, do you speak English? They were like, no. I went straight to like the bathroom in security, like right before you leave. It was like bawling. I was just like, what is my life? Why? Why am I making stupid decisions? Crying. And then I was like, okay, went out and tried to figure out where the train was. Had an almost mini meltdown because I was like, I don't speak French. I'm about to get on a bus. I don't know where the fuck I'm going. Excuse my language. I don't know where
Oh,
I'm
you go first,
going.
girl. Go
Of
for it.
course, and of course, like I'm freaking out. And then like I turned my head. There's like a big pink sign in English. It was like train this way. It was just like it was a crazy
Mhm.
situation to kind of start it, but it honestly was to this day the most like life affirming thing I've ever done. And it changed the game for me because it was one of those moments where like I'm a Capricorn through and through. Like I like to prepare. I like to know what the hell is going on. And if you give me a task, I can execute. But I was thrown into a situation where I needed to trust in all of the divine timing. I needed to really have faith beyond my own understanding. Be like, my feet are killing me, and yet I'm gonna make it to the like Atlantic coast of Spain. So it was a crazy, crazy experience to say the least.
Sounds a bit harrowing. So, question for you. It's a pilgrimage, right? So, what was your religious affiliation or your religious, I don't want to say stance. Where did you stand with religion prior to? Did you identify or connect with the pilgrimage end of it in any way? Or was it just so happened to be a pilgrimage, but you were there for the walk?
Yeah, I didn't know it was a pilgrimage till I got on it,
Oh.
which was crazy. I was like, oh, we're walking past a lot of churches. This is interesting. Like I didn't know anything about it, which I think was good because I didn't
Hmm.
have any expectations. Now, before, I was always a deeply spiritual person, not a religious person, but definitely I have a spiritual practice. I have a spiritual community in Atlanta. And so I think that was the reason why when I felt the call, I
Okay.
knew I had to undertake it because I think had I not been, I'll just been like, that's a weird thought. And I don't know, I keep on thinking these thoughts. Like for me, I was like, I don't believe in coincidence. And I know that I am divinely guided. And I know that everything always works out for me, period. And so I know that sometimes I need to go and see, and I know that I need to be led by faith. So really, it was just like I was walking on the pilgrim on the Camino and was like, oh, this is a pilgrimage. Okay, yeah. And I didn't, and still that didn't really click until like way down into it. We got to this place. It's called Cruz de Ferro, and it's you're supposed to have been carrying a symbol of your burden the entire way, and then you lay it down. And I was like, oh, word. And I just picked up a rock next to me. I was like, put it
Burden.
down. I knew nothing about it at all. And to be honest, like the first day that I did it, it's one of the worst stages. Like especially if you do the Camino Frances version, because there's also like a northern version. You're going up the French Pyrenees and coming down on the Spanish side. It's beautiful. There's like French cows and French like shaggy little horses. I don't know what they're called, but they're like you're like what is this? What am I? Like this? It's really nice.
Hmm.
And it's beautiful, right? You're just like damn, like this world is incredible. Like you take pictures, the pictures don't do it any justice. It's incredible. And I was pretty okay. Like I was like, okay, I'm fit. All right. I hadn't trained. That's also something I should tell you. I didn't train for it at all. And I recommend everyone to train and prepare for things that they're going to do, especially like this. And I was cool. I was straight for most of the day, but it was like the last 5 to 3 kilometers. It was kind of steep coming down into a town called Valles. And I was tired. My body was tired. My mind was tired. There's all these tall Scandinavians striding past me like it was nothing. And I was just like, the hell is this? They're just like, buen camino. And I'm like dying, like, oh my God, I'm so tired. And I'm crying. And I'm just like, I keep on making the worst decisions of my life. Like a lot of bad like self-talk. Like you're just like,
Yeah.
damn, I hate everything. Everything sucks. I get to the albergue. Albergues are special hostels for pilgrims, and they come in all varieties of like new and modern, and also like uh at like convents with like nuns run them, and nuns don't play. And I wouldn't know that because I'm not Catholic, but apparently nuns don't play. So
Yeah, they
there's that.
don't. Well,
So
there's some nice ones. I'm a reformed Catholic, if you will. I got one or two in the back pocket that was kind of chill, but yeah, the rest of them, especially Sister Kitsy, I will never. I don't know that I will ever forget Sister or forgive Sister Kit. No, I'll forgive her. I'll just never like her. So sorry, girl. It's fuck you forever. But make it to heaven. You know what I mean? No, no hard feelings to that extent.
that's the thing. Like, so that was a new experience for me. But when I got into Roncesvalles, I was like, I got to like the little check-in place and they see everything. So I'm like crying. And she's just like, you be all right, girl. She like stamped my little passport, gave me my little like sheet and whatever for the bed and was like, you be fine. You be fine. I was broken that day. And I was like, how am I going to explain to everyone in my life, hey guys, I'm moving to Malaysia. Just kidding. Hey guys, I'm walking across Spain. Just kidding. I'm quitting. Like I was broken. I was just like, this sucks. This is stupid. I took a shower and I was like, I'm leaving. Like I was like, I'm not doing this. This is dumb. And then I went and I tried to find something to eat. And I had like, I got a little bocadillo and like 2 beers. After that, I was like, all right, I feel better. So like I was the thing is like I didn't realize I'm not really a hangry person, but when I'm hiking, I'm a hangry person. So I was like, all right, I feel less like I'm gonna leave today, but probably this
Right.
week I'm gonna leave. And then I went walking into the village and I saw a church. And I was like, well, let me do some sightseeing since I'm here. And I go in, I sit in the back, and this priest comes up to me and he was like, he first speaks to me in Spanish. And he's like, and I'm speaking to him. He's like, oh, where are you from? And I'm from the United States. And he was like, oh, come with me. I'm not Catholic. So I was like, oh, in Catholic church, do they seat you according to nationality? Like, I don't know. So I'm sitting in the front pew and he starts the service. Again, I don't know what's happening. So I'm just like, okay. And then he like calls on this girl that's sitting further down the pew. She comes up. She's speaking, I don't know, let's say French. And I'm like, okay, I don't know what that means. She sits down. Someone else stands up. They're speaking Italian, whatever. And then he points to me. He's like, and now our friend Christine from the United States. And I was like,
What are we doing?
uh, and so I didn't know what to do. So I bowed to him and he was like, just stand off the stage. And he gave me something to read and it was like a tablet. So I read it and then he was like, he like scrolled up. He was like, what's wrong with you? Like, and I was like, okay. So I read what I was supposed to. And then I bowed to him again. I didn't know what I was doing. I don't know. And he was just like, and after that, I laughed so hard because I was just like, yo, if this is what is in store for me, like all of these crazy ass stories, then I have to go on to at least the end of this week. Cause I gotta do it for the stories.
Yeah.
And that's honestly like how I made it through was just like, this is hilarious. I'm getting into all these hijinks. There's all these misunderstandings. And like, and that was just the joy of it. It was like, what's going to be the story? What's the funny thing I'm going to get into? But then all of the blessings that really unfolded. There's something that people call like the communal provides. And I do believe that. I do believe that. I think it's something about the energy of the people that are on it and the whole history. The communal provides, and that's what kind of kept me going. So I would, after that, I would stop into every church. No one else asked me to speak. Everyone else was like, no, girl. I'll go into every church. I'll get my pilgrim blessing because I'm not going to deny anyone the chance to bless me. I'm like, you can pray for me and you can pray for me.
Right.
And that really like, that was the thing I needed to keep going, to be honest. Yeah.
That's a fuck of a story. Yeah. I mean, church, I will say Catholic church, is confusing. It's not just you. There's a lot of stand up, sit down, stand up. Ha, this time psych, kneel. This time, okay, hold hands. Everyone's here. We're talking. We're not talking. I'm waiting for an answer. Nope, you're being quiet this time. So I get it. Yeah, it is a bit confusing. That was one of the things that I used to always secretly laugh at because I went to Catholic school for all of elementary and all of high school. So it was always the chuckle when I watched my non-Catholic classmates not know what was going on. And then after the fact, I'll never forget Dominique. Dominique would complain every single time we had to do a mass or a service because she's like, I'm not Catholic. I shouldn't have to do this. And it's like, girl, you in the school. This is like the 4th year you've been here. Let it go. But yeah, totally get it. And I can definitely identify with the just kind of going with the flow and not really knowing what's going on, but being present for the, okay, but this is going to be good. I got to see where this goes. It's kind of like when you start a book or a movie and you're like, what the fuck is this? But it's like, I've already committed. What am I? All right, let's see where this goes because there's no way it could get this far and be a total letdown, right? So what was you said you'd done solo travel before. So the whole being alone while traveling wasn't new. What was your extent of experience prior to taking on the walk?
Yeah, I mean, goodness. I first started solo traveling when I was 4 years old because
Wow.
I come from a different time. You know what I mean? Like back in the day, like my parents are divorced and my parents were also in the military at the time. So I would get shuttled from grandparents to aunties all across the country.
Hmm.
And back then, boys and girls, we didn't have all of these things that you had to do for like traveling. They were just like, you could walk up to the gate, pass off
Hmm.
this kid, and they were like, "Oh, you got a kid?" And they'd be like, "Okay, here's some captain's wings and sit right there." Like
Yes.
it was very relaxed, guys.
Hmm.
So because people be
Some
like, "There's no
booklets,
way." I was like,
you little colorings.
"That's the thing," you know. Like I was talking to one of my girlfriends about it. She was like, "Yeah." She's like, one time, I think she was like too young to fly, and they're like, "Oh, just say you're this old," and they're like, she's like, "What?" Like it was a whole different world. Like they were taking the words of little kids and they would put them on the plane. Like it was a different world. So I started solo traveling then, and then internationally, my dad got stationed in Germany, so I started solo traveling to go see him, like flying. And then I was, gosh, I went around Europe. Um, what else did I do? I went well, this wasn't solo. This was for when I graduated from law school. I joined a startup and I was on business trade missions to Namibia and South Africa. So, like, I just hopped around. I
Hmm.
had done nothing outdoorsy, really, really outdoorsy, because also, two or I've almost flipped three ATVs in 3 different countries on 3 different continents. You know what I'm saying? Like
Oh, wow.
I like yeah, and I'm
Doubt
like,
it.
what's up with that? And I don't know. I don't know how to drive. Oh no. So like I never had that experience of like let's go camping or something like no, I was getting on planes, I was staying in hotels and I was seeing the sights, but nothing like I'm walking through a whole country and I'm seeing all these pueblos. Like that's a whole different thing. Kind of like you drive through a city, or you walk through a city, you get a whole
Yeah.
different kind of vibe. And that was the difference was like I understood, at least to the extent I could as a foreigner, like
Hmm.
Spain after that. I was like, oh, I'm all up in this. I'm going
Yeah.
through industrial parks, forests, pueblos, cities, crossing, these little medieval bridges that look like Cinderella. I'm like, where am I? Like, what's going on? Going through different, regional languages. It was, yeah, it was interesting.
So that was my next question. The I don't want to say like the layout, but is this like what in my mind it's like on the one hand it's very idyllic, right? Very Anna Green Gables and very Tess of D'Urbervilles and cottage here and like a random goat and like a milkmaid, bonjour, whatever. Oh no, we're in Spain. What hola, whatever, right? So outside shit. But it's an entire country. It doesn't all look like that. Did you end up passing through different like a city, or did you end up going through just completely outdoorsy kind of like what was the terrain as you progressed through the country? Did that change throughout, or was it a real rugged kind of you kind of stayed in the I guess you'd say the outskirts of what life was, or did you end up really passing through like Barcelona or what people generally see or consider when they go see other countries? Like when we travel, like, right? There's off the beaten path, but there's also, okay, no, I'm still in the city and I can identify different businesses and industry, people working, kids going to school, like the regular life of things. Or was it completely on the outskirts? And no, this was really just a path and it was just you and other pilgrims. I guess you'd be pilgrims, no? Pilgrimages or
Yeah,
pilgrims.
pilgrims. No, it was no. We went through all of life.
Wow.
Like there was times I was like, we were walking on the side of the road of a highway. There were times, gosh, literally walking through like an industrial warehouse area. And you're just like, what? What is this? And then going to major cities, like the first city, the big city in on the Camino Frances is Pamplona. So you're going through
Okay.
Pamplona. You have all the other tours. You have all the
That's
other
where they keep
things.
the
You're going to
bulls, right?
bars. Yes, yeah.
Okay.
And
Don't know why
then
this was bulls, but
and the terrain changes a lot. So you're starting in the French Pyrenees, then you're coming down into Navarra, where Pamplona is, and you walk through to La Rioja, so famous wine region. And I used to live there
okay.
too when I came back. And so you're having that experience. Like I was with like a couple of people I met, we were walking into Logroño and there was, some grapes, some vineyards. So we definitely like took some grapes. They were great,
Ooh.
excellent. I mean, I don't recommend people just be stealing somebody's grapes, but it was there. It was good a lot. But
It's
they
like
were the
it's
most
a
delicious
blessing.
grapes I ever had. I was like, this is amazing. So go through there and go through the valley, then you have a stretch called the meseta, so it's really dry and arid.
Hmm.
And that was really tough, especially because I was doing that in August and it gets really hot in certain parts of Spain, like the meseta. And then coming into like mostly, I would say Galicia is where it starts to get really green because Galicia in Spain is actually really similar to like Ireland. That's what's
Ooh.
so incredible about Spain. The geography is really, really diverse. And
Mm.
so are actually like the regional like languages, the foods. Like when people think of Spain, they usually just think of like Andalusia. They think of Sevilla, they think of flamenco,
Okay.
and I don't know, sangria and paella, even though these are, paella is from where I live now, Valencia, which is not a part of Andalusia. So they like that's what they think of. But Spain is like the geography is incredible. So you come into Galicia. When I walked into Galicia, it started raining. It hadn't rained at all the entire, let's say, like 25, 28 days before,
Wow.
and it was like raining and it was foggy and but it was cool because the fog in certain parts of Galicia, especially a part called Samos, it was literally like you're in Cinderella's, I don't know, backyard. Like I thought some animals were gonna like pop up and start talking to me. I was like,
Yeah, they're like
where
Cinderella,
am I?
with a little ribbon on and shit.
Yeah. So the geography changed a lot. And then, yeah, going through farms and farm towns. Like one of the girls I had met, she was doing it with her father, and we were walking through
Wow.
her grandmother's pueblo. And so she was like, you have to come to my grandmother's house. And so I did. And her grandmother had this huge breakfast. And
Oh.
I'm vegan, so I couldn't eat a lot of it. But she had this huge breakfast. She had this huge garden where she like grows all her food and like a proper garden, and where she like, has her own sauces and she jars everything and cans everything. Like,
Wow.
you know what I'm saying? Like, so it was incredible because, yeah, I was in a big city, kind of like Burgos has a very famous cathedral and stuff like that. But I'm also in these pueblos and having people just be like, who are you? Like, who are you, black girl?
Yeah.
Who are you? And that was actually a really cool experience because that's what I'm talking about. Like, it's a difference between walking through a city and driving through a city.
Yeah.
Like, you just feel all these things, you learn about the different foods, the fruits. People trying to feed me berries off of bushes. And I was like, I don't know. Because I feel
Yeah.
like I read a book, probably like Berenstain Bears. And I was like, Berenstain Bears said you can't just be eating any berries. So, you know, so yeah.
So what was the structure of the day? Was there part of the day that was just for walking, and was it a group experience or was it like a solo experience? Was it everyone kind of starts at the same time of the day and then the day generally ends in a pre-designated area, and then because I remember the first night you said you ended up just doing like a little sightseeing after getting, like stuff to eat and whatnot. So what was the structure of the day? Did it start as a group and then everybody kind of take their time, you get here when you get here, or was it more of a you start when you want to start and then you end when you want to end? You kind of you take as long as you want or be as quickly done as you want? Are people walking through the night, or is it more of a like a team thing? Because I am of no stretch of the imagination on anybody's run or walk. So the most I've done is like walkathons. You know how you do like breast cancer walk or them walkathons for school, and you loop around that school block a couple times, and that's my extent of walking, right? But in those, it's like we're all together. Everything kind of stays together. What was the structure of the pilgrimage?
It was, you could do whatever you wanted to do. You could go
Okay.
as fast as you wanted to go. It was definitely not a group thing. Like, some people came together and you might meet people that you would walk with sometimes. I was really like, I did a solo dolo though. I met people and it was cool, but I was never like, we're doing this together
Got it.
because I'm an introvert. I'm a Capricorn. And I was going through things. So I was like, I'm
Hmm.
not really here to make friends. I made friends, but I was like, that's not really what I'm here for. So my structure of my day would be I would get up at like 6 and I'd have like everything packed up. I would actually sleep in my clothes I was gonna like go for the next day, check all my stuff, make sure I have like money. Well, I always slept with my money. I don't play that. So my
Hmm.
money strapped to me and my passport and everything like that. And then I was out with like headlamp.
Oh, wow.
If it was, dark, I would be out because I like to like get up and out and not be with the rush. And I also like to finish my day at like 12, maximum 2, because it gets really hot here in Spain during the summertime. And I like to get to like the albergue that I want to. That's what I learned. So after the first week, and you get some real janky ones, but you're like, I'm tired and I'm
Yeah.
not gonna move. Like, you kind of start learning. So I would get in at about 12, 1, 2, find my bed, um, immediately wash all my clothes, take a shower, wash all my clothes, hang them to dry so that they could get like that,
Good.
midday
Good
heat
sun.
on
Yeah.
them. Because you don't want to walk in damp, musty clothes. You don't
Hmm.
want to do that. Do that, and then I would go have lunch, which was like a menu del dia. So it was like 10 euros for like 3 courses and some wine, some water. I'd probably go to the grocery store to get like maybe some fruit for the next day, take a nap, wake up, maybe socialize, depending on how my feet were, because I did lose like 2 toenails on the Camino. And I was not prepared to do that. I was like, oh, okay, so that's just gonna come off. Got it. and have some dinner. Now some of the albergues have curfews, so also like you could get locked out if you weren't there at like 8 or like 10 or something like that. So the day was kind of like forced structure for some of these places, because it was like, I need to do all these things, have dinner, I need to make sure I have all my stuff off the line, packed up, ready to go for the next day, wrap my feet, take an ibuprofen, put some icy hot on my legs,
Jesus.
lift my legs up, chat with people, like, okay, and then go to sleep. That was mostly like the structure of the day, was that kind of rhythm for me. Now,
Mhm.
some people, they got up whenever they wanted to. They would stop and have a coffee and do all that other stuff. But that's not really my vibe. I'm more like, let's get the work done that we need to get done. And let's get to where we're trying to get to. Especially because some of these albergues are like, like how hostels are. Some of them are like a room of four, but some of them is like a room of 120 people. And people snore. And then at some point I was like, either I have to outwalk these people.
Mm.
So I would go like a stage and a half ahead, or I have to kill you. Like it's either that. Like either I have to kill you or I have to outwalk you. So that also became part of the formula, was like, and people would be like, where are you going to? And I would tell them wrong places. I'm like,
Mhm.
don't follow me.
Yeah,
Leave me
it's
alone.
you. You're the one I'm trying to outrun. It's either me or you, baby. And my feet already said it's going to be me. So,
That's the thing. So that was most of the structure of the day.
Mhm.
And there was like, obviously throughout the day, you might meet up with people while you're walking, you have conversations. And that was always really great for me, because I wasn't just looking for people to have like to fill up the time. Like I was really in the silence, which I think was really important for me, because I'm a really good compartmentalizer. And
Okay.
so when you're walking and you're in that active meditation kind of state, and there's like nothing to distract you, and you're just walking, a lot of things come up. And while things are coming up, that's when like the incessant chatter, I don't think is helpful. But people would come like at the right time. People will be speaking messages and stuff like that. Like, like things that you're just like, how could you know that I need to hear that? Very strange stuff. So for me, that was my day. And I try to leave that space for the stillness. I try to leave the space for whatever messages were trying to come through. And for, honestly, to have the ugly cries. I still was ugly crying. And I'm still like not a crier, but like the most I've ever cried in my life was during this time of my life. Every day, out in public, tears rolling down my face as I'm like walking, you know, and clearly I needed it, but like it was it was an experience for sure.
When do you think that you first kind of shifted in yourself in the walk, right? So initially you weren't really prepared. You kind of just, all right, fuck it. We're here. We're going to do it. When do you feel like you kind of got into a groove? When did it feel as if you had like a new purpose to your walk? When did that start to kind of unravel for you?
First, I gotta tell you, 3 days in, I was, yeah, 3 or 4 days in, I was at this albergue. That was like, these movies about like 1950s orphanages? It was like that. It looked like a 1950s orphanage. Where you're like, oh, is someone gonna like pop out and with a knife and kill me? It was one of those situations. It was like, really, I think it was like drizzly. It wasn't raining, but it was like drizzly. And I was just like sitting there, like, again, I was like, I make the worst decision. Like, okay, I had some laughs. It's been all right. But now I was like, I don't know. And this French woman, she was like, are you okay? And I'm like, no, I'm struggling. This sucks. My body is tired. She was like, you got to give it 14 days. I was like, girl, we're supposed to be out here for like 30. She was like, in 14 days, you get stronger and stronger and stuff like that. But she was exactly right, actually. Like at day 14, my body was just like, this is what we do. And I
Hmm.
was putting down miles. Like, I had one day that I did like 26 miles. Like that's
Oh,
crazy. It's crazy. When I think
yeah.
about it now, and I just walk around like our little park here in Valencia, and I look at my little tracker and it's like 6 miles. I'm tired. I
Wow.
did 26 miles. And like your body does get accustomed to it. I think when my mind
Mm.
switched, I don't know, it was different stages. It was first, I don't know what the hell I got myself into. Second, this could be great for jokes. Third, it was like, well, my body's getting strong. So maybe it's not so bad. And I think honestly, it was towards the end where I actually started listening and I'd gotten enough stuff out of me where I was like, I think that saying that people talk about, like, it's not about the destination, but the journey, like that actually penetrated my soul. Because let's just be honest, before this, I was like, I don't give a damn about no journey. Let's get to the stuff. Let's get to the destination. Let's win the things. That's all I care about. But it was through this experience that I was like, oh, I actually understand it and I actually resonate with that means. And so I got to that point like right before I got into Santiago, which was crazy because by the time I think we were like, yeah, we were one day out from Santiago de Compostela, which is like the official ending, although I went on a couple more days. I'd met some people, some people I had seen like 3 weeks before, and I hadn't seen him in a while. And we were all together, and we were having dinner, and we were like, you know what we need to do? Let's just leave at 3 a.m. and just walk by the moonlight into Santiago. And I was like, maybe we should walk at like 5 so like the sun could come up though eventually.
Right.
So we did like the moonlight, like we all left on that last day. And it's something that, you're like, you hear about it, Santiago, how many more days, how many, because people also don't always do it all in one go. So sometimes you're like, oh, I have to go back home, I gotta go to work, da, da, da. So it's this thing like Santiago, Santiago, you don't know what it is. And I just remember packing myself up and it was dark. And I was like, maybe we should wait 30 more minutes. Everyone's like, no, let's go. And we start walking. And once we reached the forest, because we were first on the road, we had headlamps there. But once we got into the forest, we turned them off, and all you could smell is like the wild rosemary and eucalyptus. Yeah, I think it's eucalyptus and thyme, like the wild. It was crazy. And you're just smelling this, and you're walking by moonlight, and you're headed to like this destination that's been like this mythical creature in your life, and you're just like, this is it, this is it. And that's where I was like, that moment is when I was like, it's not about the destination, it's about this journey of had all these experiences. Because by the time we got into Santiago that morning, it wasn't a big deal. Like, you know what I mean? Like you got into it was like it's a city. It's a beautiful city, but it was like, we're here. It was a little bit underwhelming because you're just like, I
Hmm.
thought there's no dragons. There's
Yeah.
no. Because you've been like out here fighting for your life. And that was just like, wow. It was beautiful, but it was like, it reinforced that it was about the journey. Now, I went on after Santiago to Finisterre, so to the coast. They call it the end of the world. But as you know, as everyone who's a traveler, you know how many countries have an end of the world? Everybody thought it was the end of the world. They're like, yo, it's the end of the world.
Yeah.
Everybody thought it was the end of the world. When I got there, that was emotional for me. That changed everything in my life because, you hear about, okay, Venus did, I went to Santiago. Now I feel like a bad bitch. So I was like, psh, I've been walking for 30 days. Like, let's do it. Like, I can do anything in the world. But as I'm walking at like to Finisterre, you start seeing the beach. You start seeing the water, and it's like through trees, and you're walking, and you're like, you start smelling it. And then it ends up like you're spit out onto the beach.
Wow.
And I was like, 33 days ago, I was walking up the French Pyrenees next to these beautiful French cows. So cute. And now I'm walking onto the beach on the Atlantic coast of Spain. For me, that's where that transformation, like, I recognize in that moment, I could do anything. In my life, I could do anything, but not from an egoic kind of space, but like from a common sense. I can do anything, paso a paso, step by step. I can do anything. Will it hurt? Yeah, will you get tendonitis in your feet and be like can't walk for 3 months after? Maybe. But I could do anything. Like that was that moment for me. And that's what I needed to know, I think, because I think when I started the Camino, I knew that I'm smart and I should, I think it was like a very entitled kind of space. I was like, well, I should, and why is this happening to me? And da, da, da. And I think the Camino really embedded like deep spiritual principles that I had studied and I was familiar with. It embedded them inside of me. And so by the time I got to Finisterre, by the time I got to that beach, it was just like, I can do all things. I can do all things. I just need to decide what I want to do, point myself in that direction, and make sure that all my choices are in alignment with that direction. And I will get there, you know.
Do you remember what the first thing post pilgrimage was where you were able to see the shift in yourself?
Yeah, because post pilgrimage, I went backpacking around Europe, which was crazy because I was like, my body was like, we'll keep it together. But as soon as I left the pilgrimage, it was like slowly like falling apart. And it was like, girl, go home. So by the time I got home, like my feet were just like messed up. Like no lie, I had tendonitis and I could not really walk properly or train for like 3 months. It was crazy. But my spirit wasn't broken. Like I I just allowed all this creativity to come out of me.
Mm.
And I had been thinking about producing a music festival for a while. So when I got back, I produced a music festival. Like I was like, I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna figure it out. And then I did. It was one of those moments where for me, it was a difference between like you being book smart and actually being someone who contributes to the world. You know what I'm
Ooh,
saying? Like
yeah.
it's easy to be like, I know all of these things. It's like, but what are you doing? Like, what are you actually creating? So that's like the big thing that came out of the Camino was like, I don't know how to create a music festival. I don't know anything about that. I'm going to create it. And I did. And I learned so much from that experience because it was just like, well, I'm just going to ask people how to do it. I'm just going to put myself out. I'm going to align myself.
Mhm.
And what's the worst that could happen? And the worst that could happen is that I created a music festival like a year later in Atlanta. And that was just one of those experiences where it was like, I can do anything. It wasn't like Coachella, but it was like I did, you know? And that's the kind of thing that is what I've always used now for any motivation when I feel like, well, I don't know how to do this and I don't know how to do that. I don't know how to do a lot of things. I have to remind myself, like, you see, you went to law school, but you don't really know how Wi-Fi works, girl. So why are you stressed? You don't know how you don't know how to do a lot of things. Just try. And so I do, and things happen. So for me, like the motto for the Camino is paso a paso, step by step. The literally having to walk step by step by faith has imprinted on my life, and I take that everywhere. in any endeavor that I do. The things that I try to talk myself out of, and I'm like, I don't know. And it's just like, well, paso, paso. We're gonna do some steps. If it's meant to be, I'm sure the universe is gonna give me a sign, and then we'll continue going. And it's worked out that way.
So about this second one, what what inspired you to do this again? And what do you intend to do differently? Do you intend to do anything differently for the second go around? But very bigly, like why?
Okay, so the Camino is an experience that, like, it sucks at some point. Like, it does suck at some point. You're like, what the hell is this? But it's something that gets into your spirit, under your skin, that even with tendonitis in your feet, you're like, I gotta go do this again.
Okay.
It's something about the clarity. It's something about, yeah, like the clarity. Like, you just hear the things that you need to hear so clearly for me. That was like, I gotta have this experience again. And you crave it. It's also something about that active meditation of walking. It's so powerful. It's so powerful that I think like my body craved that. I still go on really long walks because I'm like, something about that is just the rhythm, the energy that's moved up and out of your body. Like, it's just something very healing about that. The disconnect, something very healing about that. But it's been almost, it'll be 10 years
Wow.
next year.
Yeah.
And I can't believe it. And I'm just like, girl, you are not as spry as you were 10 years ago. I'm happy to look. I work out, I do my Pilates, I do some of my yoga, but like, I'm not as spry.
Yeah.
But I think what has been the calling for this second Camino has been, since I did the first one, I moved to Spain.
Okay.
Like, I decided to move here and to make my life here for at least this chapter. And it's kind of like uh, it's like a gratitude tour. Because the thing is, like, Spain is not perfect. I know some people are like, oh, okay, Spain's not perfect. Not a lot of places are perfect, but it has given me so much. And the Camino was the thing that gave me Spain. And so I feel like I need to go on this gratitude tour. And also, I am in a place in my life where I think I need like a tune up. I need to hear some things, I need some clarity on some things. And so I'm wanting to do another Camino. This one's going to be different because I want to do the Camino Norte, which starts in the northern part of Spain. So we're going through like San Sebastian, Bilbao, like, Basque Country, Asturias, Cantabria. And the elevation is a lot tougher. It's beautiful and gorgeous, but it's a lot tougher. Um, and I'm looking forward to it. I'm trying to make it happen this year. I think I'm going to be able to do it at least maybe a week, but I'm hoping to do the entire thing. But it's just something like, I know that it's tough and it's physically demanding, but there's just something about once you surrender to it, once your body surrenders to it, once your mind surrenders to it, you actually do have like this really interesting mind body connection. Like, shit just works better. You hear better. You see better. Like, you just be knowing things that you'd be like, I've been thinking about this for so long. You just be knowing things. And so I'm looking forward to that kind of clarity. And it's like a tune up. And I'm sure I've been compartmentalizing lots of stuff that needs to come up and out. And I'll just be crying for days and days. Because that's the nature of the Camino for me. It's like a safe space for
Okay.
me to let it all out. So I'm excited and scared, very scared, but it is what it is.
I think for me, because although it's tempting, I do not see a 30-day pilgrimage in my near future. But I do see doing more walks. But when you mentioned it just connects, I feel like that for someone that can't necessarily commit to that amount of time, I think the forcing yourself to do new things, to having new experiences, challenging experiences, like definitively and intentionally taking on something that you know is difficult for yourself, but not shortcutting or, quitting through that journey. At some point, it just starts to make sense. It's kind of like when I plan a trip, but I don't necessarily see how some of the moving parts are going to happen. You just figure it out, right? So we just got back from Mexico on Thursday, and I am not a Capricorn. I do not plan that well, because at a certain point I get too caught up in certain details, and then I totally miss out on other details. But I travel with my partner now, and it has been an entirely different experience of travel. And this is the first and a half, I guess you can say, because we had a weekend trip with friends maybe 1 or 2 summers ago, but that was in Jersey. We did Atlantic City together, right? So this is the first time that I've ever vacationed with another couple other than that weekend trip. So for me, it's now including not just my partner in travel accommodations and plans and what to do, but he's mine. You know what I mean? So it's he'll just, all right, wait, whatever you want to do. You want to do this? We'll do this. What do you want to eat? That's a lot easier to navigate, right? The two of us, we navigate life. So it's not difficult to navigate a trip. But then now navigating 2 other sets of people and tastes and moods and physical abilities was a little bit of a stretch for me because, like you mentioned earlier, I am outgoing, but I am not an extrovert. I do very well by myself. And I think because I'm so outgoing, people tend to think that I'm an extrovert, but my social battery, it's like an iPhone that you haven't been charging right the whole time through. So by the time you leave the house and get to work, you at 32% and you're like, what the fuck? So are we all traveling together? How are we getting to the airport? Are you guys coming with us? And so many things. It's when one person says something, but now there are 4 people to kind of navigate. It's well, I kind of suggested we get the tickets the day before, but okay, no one did it. So here we are now trying to take the bus to the airport, and there are no more seats on the bus because there's a finite number of seats. So you know what I mean? So it's for me, it's the learning to, you don't have to be the get you gotcha. I said that. Just pivot and seeing who got stressed over. Now there's a change. And it's okay, well, how do you gracefully now include someone else's feelings in this clusterfuck of now we have to change the plans. And so it's one of those things that as a not really a planner, you kind of got to balance. And it was difficult for me to kind of not shrink into my own bag of my own feelings. Okay, so if we had done, let it go. Things change and you have to now navigate with a ton of other people. So I can't commit to the whole 30-day thing, but even in that 4-day window, if you give yourself the opportunity to do things that are new for you, those challenges will come up. And to your point, it's not about, yes, we got to the fucking airport, right? But it was the journey between. Even though that journey was only a little 20-minute journey, the journey was navigate other people. Are you the type of person that wants to make sure everybody is okay inside? Or are you the kind of person that wants to make sure everybody is okay on the outside? I'm the inside person. My partner's the outside person. He's logistics and point A, point B. So he's stressing over that. But I'm babe, take a breath. It's all right. Don't worry about it. It's money. So we paid for the tickets. Not a big deal. We'll take a taxi. But he's all right, logistics. I got to get everybody here. It's 4 of us. And it's ooh. So now let's take a shift. And I think one of the things that I'm definitely going to take from your example is finding those opportunities, because I really feel like to your point, and one of the other questions I wanted to ask you was, do you remember any of your angels? You had mentioned people coming with a message that came right on time. And this conversation in and of itself is very right on time for me, because there, as a podcaster, there are so many other things that go on in the background of making these episodes and just consistently doing other things that bring the whole together. So this was a message for me to kind of just like, you don't have to have it all figured out in one day. Like, the series of little steps is what gets you to the end. And what were some of those messages, or what were some of the people that really gave you that tap on the shoulder and was just like, oh, wait, I didn't even consider looking at it this way, or thank you for that pause, or thank you for that shift in mindset?
Yeah, I mean, gosh, so many. I remember particularly this old, I think he was German, but lived in the Netherlands, old man who had like, what was his business? It was like some type of like manufacturing business, but he like manufactured parts for plastic surgeon. It was like this whole thing. And I was like, what? Because he knew he knew where Atlanta was. He's like, oh yeah, I've been there for business and da, da, da. I was like, what? Tell me more about this business.
Yeah.
Tell me more about this plastic surgeon manufacturer. Like, what's manufacturing? What's going on? I remember like I'd seen him and we had chatted before, and we were walking, and he came up to me. It was one of those days I was crying. And the great thing about the community, no one's ever like, what's wrong? Because everybody
Yeah.
knows like, oh, either your feet hurt or something's going on in your spirit. So it's never like, what's wrong? And he looked at me and he was like, what's the worst that could happen? And I was like, what do you mean? He's like, whatever you're thinking about, what's the worst that could happen?
Hmm.
And I was like, well, if I say how I really feel, then like, because I was like ruminating on, some things, and like, if I say how I really feel, people will be offended. If I try and do something that I really want to do, I'll fail. And he was like, but what's the really worst thing that could happen? Just from some tears. I didn't talk to him about anything. He was just like, what's the worst that could happen? So it could have been like, he could have been like, you don't have to make it to the next, town. You could stop here, sleep at this town, stuff like that. What's the worst that could happen? And I remember that because I was like, that changed a lot for me. It's how, I mean, I feel like I'm still such a cautious person. I'm very like, I love to plan things. I don't want no surprises. But I did come in Santiago. I live abroad. So it's kind of like, there's gonna be surprises.
Yeah.
There's a lot of things that you can't plan. And if you are like rigid, you're not gonna make it.
Yeah.
So what's the worst that can happen is it's kind of reckless. I've definitely utilized it in reckless ways, but it's also gotten me here. What is the worst that can happen in podcasting? Because I almost didn't publish my podcast. I was thinking about that for so long. I was like, and I had to think, like, what's the worst that can happen? Like, your mom listens to it and that's it. And that's all I thought. I was like, my mom is gonna listen to it and she's gonna call me and be like, I like this episode. About it. Okay, the worst is that my mom is gonna give me critiques and will be like, oh, this girl's nice. And that is something that I cherish, because I think as a Black woman, a Black American woman from the South, I'm also Caribbean, I think that we have, I'll speak for myself, that I have definitely had tendencies of perfectionism,
Mm-hmm.
because I don't want to be seen a certain kind of way. Like, I want to be seen as perfect, like I can do it, like I'm capable, like I'm valuable. And I was like, what's the worst that happens if it's janky? Like, what's the worst? Because if I'm waiting on myself, if I'm discounting my voice, my opinion, my creativity, then I'm suffering. And I'm also not being in my service, because my service, my purpose has nothing to do with me. It has everything to do with me serving others. And that can be grandiose and it can be very small in the ways that we show up for other people. So that has changed a lot, because it's like, what's the worst that can happen? People would be like, that's whack. Okay. You have a typo. Okay. Nobody comes, no one listens, whatever. Okay. And the weird thing is that ever since I've adopted that, the worst has never occurred. Also, like the worst doesn't happen. Some things you're like, oh, well, I want it to be like whatever, but like maybe that, the pie in the sky didn't happen, but like the worst didn't happen. And so that also made me think like, wow, sometimes I'm like the weapon formed against myself. Like maybe I was like sometimes I'm the weapon formed against me. Like sometimes I am the op. I'm the one that's
Yeah.
helping myself. And that also was really critical, right? Because I think when I was first walking the Camino, I was like, universe, you don't want me to win.
Mhm.
Everybody hates me. I don't know. Why don't I get the stuff? And it was just like one of those moments where you just had to recognize like things happen, yes, to you, perhaps, but do they really stop you? You know what I mean? Like, a lot of like that's what I like about the Camino. It's just that time for you to like figure out the stuff that's your stuff and not your stuff. And then the stuff that's
Mm.
yours, you gotta look at it. You're like, I don't want that to be my stuff. I don't when I look in the mirror, I want to see that. But it's true that it's honest. And the great thing about it is that when you come into that reckoning with yourself, then you can actually move on. But
Mm.
if you don't have that reckoning, you can't. So what's the worst that could happen? You have this reckoning with yourself and you recognize like, you cute, but also you're problematic. You're cute though, girl, but you're problematic. And then you can move on from it. So that German Dutch guy with maybe he manufactured some, I don't know, maybe it was like silicone implants, something, it was like some plastic surgery stuff. And yeah, I will ever forget that. He was like, what's the worst that can happen? I feel like that's also like elder wisdom.
Yeah.
Because elders would be like, why are you so stressed?
Mm-hmm.
Like you got a whole computer in your hands. You don't have no computer. Like so stressed out. So yeah, he was definitely one of those Camino angels. But that's the thing. The Camino provides. I think life provides too,
Yeah,
if
it
we're
does.
quiet enough and we're open to it. So you don't have to go on a 30-day trek. You can always do the Camino in, bite-sized pieces, or you could do whatever you need to do, walking or meditating, whatever, to get in that space. But I think you have to be receptive to it.
Mm.
You have to be receptive to the idea that life provides. You have to be receptive to the idea that people that you don't know can be in cahoots for you in ways that they don't even know they're in cahoots for you. You know what I mean? They can be part of that, but you got to be receptive to that.
Would you have any advice for anyone who is looking to undertake the Camino in their future?
Yeah. You first thing is that you need to get proper footwear. So you definitely want to make sure you understand your feet because you do not want to fuck up your feet at all. And I had good shoes and I had inserts and I still lost two toenails, and I had tendonitis in my feet. So you need to make sure you have proper footwear. You need to make sure it's broken in. I would
Mm.
also say you'd want to train in some capacity. Some people don't. That's fine. But if you have like a finite amount of time, you might want to train so that you can get to where you're trying to go and not be injured. Although there is like a whole like crop of like doctors and like podiatrists like along the Camino in certain cities because they'd be like, yeah, come on in. Yeah, come on. You have the wrong shoes and just come on in. And people, have to get procedures, so they have to, tap out and stuff like that on the Camino. Yeah, it's pretty wild. So I would say
Oh,
proper
wow.
footwear and to train some. Now, you don't gotta do 26 miles or anything like that. I would just say, walk. I would say a good rule of thumb is like walk to your edge. Like when you practice yoga, you're supposed to go to your edge, but you come back. That looks different for every person, right? Some people can do a handstand. Some people can just do a little like, tripod and they like, with like a figure four kind of thing, like that's all they could do. Do that, like push to your edge and call it a day. So if you're not used to being very active, okay, take a walk around your park, build up a little sweat. You don't gotta go fast, but like feel like, okay, I've done something. All right, stop. And then kind of build that kind of momentum, I would say. And then a good rule of thumb for your backpack is you don't want it to be more than 10% of your body weight. So do keep that in mind because you are carrying everything that you need like on your back. So don't be like, oh, I can have this and have that. And it's all about priorities because look, I did the Camino and like I had some makeup, I had a little bit of makeup, I had a little bit of essential oils, I had different stuff for my hair, but I made it work in my pack. Like I prioritized what I needed. So you can have all the things that you need, you just can't have everything. Um, yeah, I think that's the biggest, those are the biggest things, like if you're interested in doing it. Also, I would say definitely don't be discouraged, right? Because I said a lot of crazy stuff. You'd be like, girl, I'm not trying to lose some toenails. They grow back
Yeah.
kind of normally. Like, I have one that's kind of like not, I don't know if that's ever going to be normal, but I mean, it's normal. Like, I can get a pedicure. I'm afraid.
Right.
Like, people, I take my shoe off at the nail salon. They're like, oh, it's just, I know what it was before. That's it.
Right.
Um, like, don't be afraid of that. And don't be afraid, like, I won't finish or anything like that. Because cool thing is that the Camino is actually way more popular than it was when I did it. So they have a lot of other amenities. Some people ship their backpack. Like if it becomes too much, they ship it to the next place. You can always do that. Or if you be like, I'm done, just be done. And there's plenty of things to do in Spain and then catch a flight back home. Um, I just, yeah, I would say those things and just don't let the fear of failure like stop you. Like push that edge. You don't gotta go and do it all, but like push that edge. Be curious about what that fear of failure is trying to prevent you from discovering about yourself. That's what I would say.
Christine, this has been such a bomb conversation. Like I could talk to you all fucking day. But where can the people find you so that they can hear more about your travels, your experiences, and what you have to give to us as a creator?
Yeah, y'all can find me at my podcast, Flourish in the Foreign, which is all about the elevation, celebration, and affirmation of Black women across the diaspora who choose to live and thrive abroad. We also explore living abroad as a pathway to wellness. You can listen to it all across all major podcasting platforms, the website, flourishintheforeign.com, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook at Flourish Foreign, Pinterest. It's it's all right. We're gonna get it there. We're gonna get it there though. So Pinterest, Flourish the Foreign, YouTube, Flourish the Foreign, and yeah, and LinkedIn, Flourish the Foreign as well. Yeah. Yeah, this has been so wonderful. Thank you so much for the opportunity.
And thank you so much for sharing your story with us. And thank you for joining us. Good folks, as a weekly reminder, this has been a most perfect example of travel being so much more than vacation. Travel can be one of the most life impactful experiences if you open yourself to the opportunity and remind yourself that you can do hard things. So thanks, folks. I will see y'all next week. Bye, y'all.